A golden Sunday sun drenched Central Park in Riverdale, transforming the scene into a living canvas of children's laughter and dancing leaves. Ethan Walker, at 32, watched his adopted daughter Olivia, age 5, swinging happily, her blonde curls gleaming under the afternoon sun. Dressed casually in jeans and a polo shirt, his relaxed demeanor belied his status as the billionaire CEO of Tech Corp, one of the most innovative technology companies in the world. Ethan smiled, lost in thought. Exactly 4.5 years ago, he had found Olivia, then an abandoned baby, on the steps of his Oakwood Estates mansion. That moment changed his life forever. Now, watching the giggling little girl on the swing, he couldn't imagine life without her. "Higher, Dad!" Olivia shouted, her small legs kicking the air in excitement. Ethan laughed and pushed the swing harder, watching the pure joy on his daughter's face. The park was crowded that Sunday afternoon. Families were picnicking on the grass, couples strolled hand in hand, and children ran around chasing soap bubbles. It was a perfect day, the kind that would remain in memory as a golden recollection of happiness. Ethan checked his watch. There was an hour left until the dinner he had promised Olivia at her favorite Italian restaurant in the city center. He was about to call Olivia to leave when something unexpected happened. A sharp cry sliced through the cheerful buzz of the park. "She's my twin sister." Ethan turned abruptly toward the sound, his heart skipping a beat. A few yards away, a girl around Olivia's age, dressed in ragged clothes, was pointing frantically at the swing, her wide eyes fixed on Olivia with an intensity that made Ethan shudder. The world around Ethan seemed to slow, almost to a stop. He looked at Olivia, who had stopped swinging and was observing the scene with curiosity, then at the unknown girl, and back at Olivia. The resemblance was impossible, unbelievable, shocking. Same face, same eyes, same expression of innocent curiosity. Ethan felt his legs weaken, the blood draining from his face, leaving him cold and dizzy. He staggered, nearly falling, his vision blurring at the edges. "Dad?" Olivia's worried voice sounded very far away. "Are you okay?" Ethan blinked rapidly, forcing himself to focus. Olivia was standing now, looking at him with concern. He turned his gaze back to where the unknown girl had been, but to his astonishment, she was gone, as if she had been swallowed by the earth. There was no sign of her anywhere. Where did she go?" Ethan murmured, his eyes frantically scanning the crowd. "Who, Dad?" Olivia asked, tugging on his shirt sleeve. The girl who shouted. Ethan nodded, still stunned. You saw her. Did you notice how she looked just like you?" Olivia frowned, confused. "She looked like me. I didn't see her properly." "Dad, she disappeared so quickly." Ethan ran his hand through his hair, his heart still pounding. How could that girl have vanished so quickly? And more importantly, who was she? How did she know about Olivia? And most crucially, could she really be his daughter's twin sister? "Olivia," Ethan said, kneeling so that he was at eye level with her. "We need to go home now. We have some things to talk about," Olivia pouted. "But what about dinner at the Italian restaurant?" Ethan forced a smile, trying to hide his agitation. "We can order in. How about that? We can have a picnic in the living room." Olivia nodded enthusiastically, apparently forgetting the strange incident from moments before. But for Ethan, that shout still echoed in his mind, bringing with it a whirlwind of questions and possibilities that threatened to turn his world upside down. As they walked out of the park, Ethan cast one last look over his shoulder, half expecting to see the mysterious girl again. But she was gone, leaving only questions in her wake. One thing was certain: Ethan would not rest until he discovered the truth. The mystery had only just begun, and Ethan Walker, the man who built a tech empire from scratch, was about to embark on the most important investigation of his life, one that could redefine the meaning of family for him and for Olivia. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the park. One chapter of their lives had ended, and another, more mysterious and potentially wonderful, was about to begin. Night descended on the Walker mansion like a heavy cloak, bringing with it a silence that should have been comforting. But for Ethan, every passing minute seemed to amplify the echo of that shout in the park. "She's my twin sister." Ethan tossed and turned in his king-sized bed, his gaze fixed on the ornate ceiling. The spacious bedroom, usually a haven of tranquility, now felt suffocating with unanswered questions. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that girl's face, a perfect copy of Olivia, but with eyes that told a completely different story. At 3 a.m, he gave up trying to sleep. He rose silently, careful not to wake the household, and went down to his office. The soft lamplight illuminated the photo of Olivia on his desk, a radiant smile, bright eyes, golden hair blowing in the wind. Ethan picked up the picture frame, his fingers tracing the outline of his daughter's face. "Who are you really, my little one?" he whispered to the photograph. His mind drifted back to that night, 4.5 years ago, when he found Olivia. It was a cold autumn night, and he was coming home late from work. The baby's crying took him by surprise, a fragile but insistent sound coming from the steps at the entrance of the mansion. There, wrapped in a cheap blanket, was Olivia. Back then, Ethan didn't hesitate. He brought the baby inside, called the authorities, and followed all the necessary legal procedures. But now, recalling every detail of that night, he wondered what he might have missed. Was there any clue about Olivia's origin that he didn't notice? Any detail that could have revealed the existence of a twin sister? The hours passed, and Ethan found himself immersed in a frantic search. He looked up cases of separated twins, adoption stories, anything that could shed light on his situation. But the more he read, the more questions arose. The rising sun took him by surprise, its first rays peeking through the curtains. Ethan blinked, feeling the weight of a sleepless night. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee reached his nose. Maria, the housekeeper, was already up, starting the day's routine. With a tired sigh, Ethan stood. It was time to face the day and Olivia's inevitable questions. In the sunny kitchen, Olivia was already seated at the table, swinging her legs as Maria made pancakes. Upon seeing Ethan, the little girl's face lit up with a smile. "Good morning, Dad. You look tired. Did you have nightmares?" Ethan forced a smile, sitting down beside her. "No, sweetheart, I just didn't sleep very well." Olivia tilted her head, her blue eyes so much like the girls from the park, fixed on him with curiosity. Was it because of that girl yesterday, the one who shouted in the park? Ethan felt his heart race. He knew this question was coming, but he still wasn't prepared to answer it. "Yes, Olivia. I'm a bit worried about her. Why did she say she was my sister? Dad, do I have a sister I didn't know about?" The innocence of the question hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. How could he explain something he himself didn't understand? "Honey," he began, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes people get confused. Maybe that girl thought you looked like someone she knows." Olivia frowned thoughtfully. "But she seemed pretty sure Dad and you acted really strange afterward." Ethan swallowed hard. His daughter was sometimes too perceptive for her own good. "It's complicated, sweetheart. I'm trying to understand what happened." "Can we look for her?" Olivia asked, her eyes shining with the idea of an adventure. "Maybe she needs help. She didn't have nice clothes like mine." Olivia's innocent observation made Ethan vividly recall the girl's ragged appearance in the park. His heart clenched. If that child really was Olivia's sister, what sort of conditions was she living in? "We'll see Olivia," he answered softly. "First, we need to find out more about her." The rest of breakfast passed with Olivia asking more questions, some Ethan could answer, others that left him silent, searching for words. Each innocent question was a reminder of how much he didn't know, how much he needed to discover. After dropping Olivia off at school, Ethan drove to his office at TechCorp, but his mind was far from business. Instead of reviewing reports or attending meetings, he found himself researching adoption agencies, private investigators, anything that might help him unravel the mystery. By mid-afternoon, frustrated by the lack of progress, Ethan decided to return to the park. It was a long shot, he knew, but maybe someone had seen something. Maybe there was some clue he had missed in the shock of the moment. The park was quieter that Monday. Ethan walked over to the swings, tracing his steps from the previous day. He watched the children playing, each young face making his heart jump, wondering if he might see the mysterious girl again. That was when he noticed the elderly woman selling flowers near the main path. She had been there yesterday, he suddenly remembered. Maybe she had seen something. Approaching the woman, Ethan bought a bouquet of daisies, Olivia's favorites. "Excuse me," he began hesitantly, "but you were here yesterday afternoon, weren't you?" The woman smiled kindly. "Yes, sir. I'm here every day, rain or shine." Ethan took a deep breath. "Then maybe you saw too there was an incident yesterday with a girl shouting about being the twin sister of another child. Do you remember that?" The woman's smile faltered momentarily. "Oh, yes, that poor little thing. She was so agitated." Ethan's heart quickened. "Do you know her? Do you know who she is?" The woman slowly shook her head. "No, sir. I never seen her before yesterday." But she hesitated, looking around as if to ensure no one was listening. She didn't seem well, her clothes, you know, and those eyes, they'd seen things no child should see. Ethan nodded, feeling a lump form in his throat. "Thank you," he murmured, clutching the bouquet of daisies. Returning to his car, Ethan knew he was only at the beginning of a long and possibly painful journey. But one thing was certain. He wouldn't stop until he discovered the truth, for Olivia and for the mysterious girl who, in some way, had already found a place in his heart. Glancing at the daisies on the passenger seat, Ethan made a silent promise. He would find the truth and do whatever it took to ensure both girls, Olivia and the unknown child who might be her sister, got the life they deserved. With that renewed determination, Ethan started the car. The mystery had only just begun, but he was ready to face it, no matter where it led. The days that followed the park incident dragged agonizingly slowly for Ethan Walker. Each morning brought a fresh wave of hope, only to be replaced by frustration by nightfall. The park, once a place of joy and relaxation for him and Olivia, had become the stage for his silent obsession. Ethan established a new routine. Every morning after dropping Olivia at school, he drove to Central Park. The route he used to take absent-mindedly was now traveled with almost painful attention. Every face on the street, every child holding a parent's hand, could be a clue, a connection to the mysterious girl who had upended his world. Arriving at the park, Ethan always chose the same bench, strategically positioned with a view of most of the playground. His laptop, open in front of him, gave the impression that he was working, a ready excuse for any curious onlooker. But his restless, watchful eyes constantly scanned the area, looking for a glimpse of that blonde hair, that familiar yet unknown face. On the third day of his vigil, Ethan noticed something he had previously overlooked: an elderly woman selling flowers. She was there every day, he realized, a constant in the ever-changing flow of park visitors. Her cart, filled with colorful bouquets, was like a beacon, attracting curious children and hurried adults. Ethan watched her with growing interest. She interacted with customers with a gentle smile that never wavered, even when people passed by without buying. Her eyes, wrinkled yet sharp, seemed to take in everything around her. Ethan made a mental note to speak with her soon. Someone so present and observant would surely have valuable information. As the days passed without any sign of the mysterious girl, Ethan felt the weight of her absence growing in his chest. Every passing child was scrutinized, every distant laugh made his heart jump, but whenever he looked more closely, it was just another unknown face, another disappointment. As his search continued, Ethan wrestled with conflicting thoughts about what this potential discovery could mean for his family. He loved Olivia more than anything. She was the center of his world, the light that brightened his days. But if there was another child out there, equally deserving of his love and protection, how would he balance his responsibilities? And how would Olivia react to the idea of a twin sister? These questions tormented him, chasing him even in his dreams. Night after night, he found himself in a mirror maze, chasing two identical Olivias. One laughed and ran into his arms, while the other cried alone, always just out of reach. He woke up sweating, heart pounding, an inexplicable sense of guilt weighing on him. By day, as he watched children playing in the park, Ethan caught himself imagining ever more elaborate scenarios. How would the first meeting between Olivia and her possible sister go? Would they recognize each other instantly, a genetic bond overcoming years of separation? Or would there be awkwardness, maybe even fear? And what about the girl's mother? Ethan couldn't help wondering about the circumstances that led to the twins being separated. Poverty, illness, an impossible decision made in a moment of despair. He was certain there was a story of pain and hardship there. How would he approach the situation sensitively and fairly for everyone involved? On the 7th day of his vigil, Ethan noticed something that deeply disturbed him. A group of older children were picking on a younger girl near the swings. For a moment, his heart sped up. Could it be her? But as he approached, he saw it wasn't the girl he was searching for. Even so, he couldn't ignore the situation. "Hey," he called, his voice firm but gentle. The older kids scattered quickly, leaving the smaller girl alone, tears in her eyes. Ethan knelt beside her. "Are you okay?" The girl nodded shyly, wiping her tears with her sleeve. "Thank you, sir. What's your name?" Ethan asked softly. "Lily," she replied in a near whisper. "Well, Lily, those kids won't bother you anymore, but if it happens again, find an adult to help." "Okay?" Lily nodded again, a small smile appearing on her face. "Okay, thanks again." As he watched Lily run back to a group of younger children, Ethan felt a wave of emotion wash over him. How many other kids were out there in need of help? How many other Olivias and Lilies existed, alone and scared? That night, lying in bed unable to sleep, James reflected on the incident with Lily. His search for the mysterious girl had begun as something personal, a mission to complete his family. But now he realized it could be something much bigger. After all, he was Ethan Walker, CEO of one of the country's largest tech companies. He had resources, influence, and power. What was he doing with all that, beyond amassing more wealth? Perhaps it was time to use his privileges for something more meaningful. An idea began taking shape in his mind. A foundation, perhaps, a program to help children in need, to ensure no Olivia or Lily was ever abandoned. He could use his company's technology to create support systems, to connect children in need with resources and opportunities. As the plan developed in his thoughts, Ethan felt a new energy fill him. Yes, he would still find the mysterious girl. This was still central to him. But now there was a larger purpose, a broader vision of what he could accomplish. On the 10th day of his vigil at the park, Ethan arrived with renewed determination. As always, his gaze swept across the playground, searching for a familiar face. But today, he also watched with new eyes, noticing children who looked lonely, those wearing clothes that were too worn, those who gazed enviously at other kids' snacks. And just like every previous day, there was the flower seller lady arranging her colorful cart. Ethan watched her for a moment, admiring the grace with which she interacted with each customer, the way her smile lit up children's faces as they stopped to admire the flowers. Making a sudden decision, Ethan stood up from his usual bench. It was time to do more than just watch. It was time to act. With determined steps, he approached the flower cart. The lady looked up when he approached, a smile of recognition on her wrinkled face. "Good morning," Ethan said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I think it's time we had a conversation." The lady tilted her head, her eyes shining with a wisdom that seemed to transcend age. "Ah, the worried father, I was wondering when you'd come to talk to me." Ethan blinked in surprise. You knew I wanted to talk to you," she laughed softly. "My dear, I've been watching you watch this park for 10 days. Your eyes say more than you imagine." Ethan felt his cheeks grow warm. Had he been that transparent? But maybe that transparency was a blessing. Perhaps this lady, with her keen eyes and gentle smile, had the answers he sought. "I'm looking for someone," he began, his words hesitant. "A little girl, she appeared here 10 days ago, shouted something about being my daughter's twin sister, and then vanished." The flower lady studied him for a long moment, her gaze so penetrating it felt as though she could see right through him. "Some searches," she finally said, "lead us to places we never imagined. Are you prepared for where this one might take you?" James Miller. Ethan swallowed hard, surprised she knew his name, but determined. "Yes," he replied, voice firm. "I'm ready for whatever it takes." The lady smiled, a smile that seemed filled with secrets and promises. "Then, my dear, you should sit down. We have a lot to discuss." And so, under the shade of an old tree, surrounded by the scent of fresh flowers and the distant sound of children playing, Ethan Walker prepared to hear what the flower lady had to say. His heart pounded, a mixture of anxiety and hope. He knew somehow that what he was about to hear would change his life forever. The silent search had reached a turning point, and there was no turning back. Ethan sat down next to the flower cart, his heart thudding against his ribs. The flower lady observed him with a penetrating look, as if she could see into his soul. For a moment they were both silent, the hum of the park around them contrasting with the palpable tension between them. So the lady began, her voice soft but firm. "You want to know about the girl?" It wasn't a question, but Ethan nodded anyway. "Yes, anything you can tell me. I need to find her." The lady sighed, her eyes drifting over the park before returning to Ethan. "It's not so simple. You know there are stories in this park that shouldn't be told lightly." Ethan leaned forward, urgency clear in his voice. "Please, she could be important to my family. I need to know." The lady studied him for another moment, as if measuring his sincerity. Finally, she nodded. "Very well, but remember, once you hear this, you cannot unhear it. Are you ready for the consequences?" "I am," Ethan answered, without hesitation. The flower lady began arranging a bouquet as she spoke, her skillful hands moving among the flowers with grace. "The girl you're looking for. I see her around here. Her name is Chloe." Ethan's heart jumped. Chloe. Finally, a name for the face that haunted him. "She comes here often," the lady continued, "always alone, always watching other children play, but never joining them." "Why?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The lady shrugged sadly. "Who can say but her eyes? Oh, her eyes tell a story of loneliness and sorrow no child should know." Ethan felt a knot tighten in his throat. The image of Chloe, lonely and sad, contrasted painfully with the happy memories of Olivia. "You mentioned she has a difficult life," Ethan pressed gently. The flower lady nodded, her eyes filling with deep sadness. "Yes, her clothes are always worn, sometimes dirty, and there are days when she looks so hungry, it breaks my heart." Ethan felt a wave of concern wash over him. The idea of a child lacking basic needs was heartbreaking. "What about her parents?" he asked, dreading the answer. "I've never seen them," the lady replied, shaking her head. "In all these months, Chloe has always been alone. Sometimes she mentions a mother, but I've never seen any adult with her." Ethan frowned, his mind racing with possibilities. A single mother, perhaps, working long hours just to scrape by. "There's more," the lady continued, her voice dropping as though afraid of being overheard. "There were days when Chloe showed up different." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Different? How do you mean?" The flower lady hesitated, her eyes showing concern. "Sometimes she seems exhausted, like she hasn't slept other times. I noticed she walked carefully, as if she was in pain." Ethan felt a mixture of alarm and resolve grow within him. Chloe's situation seemed more and more alarming. "Why didn't you call the authorities?" he asked, his voice tense. The lady sighed heavily. "Oh, young man, do you think I didn't consider that? But Chloe, she gets so scared when I mention adults, so fearful, and without solid proof." Ethan understood the dilemma. Without clear evidence, calling the authorities could just scare Chloe away for good. "There's one more thing," the lady said, her voice now almost a whisper. "Something I noticed about Chloe." Ethan leaned closer, eager to hear. "She always watches the families in the park," the lady revealed, "especially girls her age. It's like she's looking for something or someone." Ethan's heart almost stopped. Could it be that Chloe, in some way, knew or sensed she had a sister? "Where can I find her?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling with contained emotion. The flower lady studied him for a long moment before answering. "She usually comes late in the afternoon when the park is quieter. But Ethan," she took his hand, her eyes serious. "Be careful. Chloe is like a frightened bird. One sudden move, and she'll fly away, never to return." Ethan nodded, understanding the gravity of the warning. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you for all you've told me." The lady smiled softly. "Don't thank me yet. The road ahead won't be easy. Are you ready for what you may discover?" Ethan paused for a moment, thinking of Olivia, of his comfortable life, of the happy family they were. Then he thought of Chloe, alone and possibly in danger. His resolve hardened. "I am," he answered firmly. "No matter what happens, I need to help Chloe. If she really is important to my family, well, that changes everything." The flower lady nodded, apparently satisfied with his response. "Then go, Ethan Walker, and may you find what you're looking for." Ethan stood, feeling both energized and overwhelmed. He had a name now and some information, but the questions that tormented him had only multiplied. As he walked back to his car, Ethan glanced over his shoulder one last time. The flower lady was already attending to another customer, her gentle smile back in place. But when their eyes briefly met, Ethan saw in them a mix of hope and concern. Walking back to his car, Ethan felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Finding Chloe was just the first step. What came next, how he could help her, how it would affect Olivia, how he would navigate the complexities of this situation, was a mystery. But one thing was certain. Ethan Walker would not rest until he ensured Chloe's safety and, if possible, understood her connection to his family. The road ahead was uncertain and likely difficult, but he was determined to travel it, no matter the cost. As he started the car, Ethan made a silent promise to Chloe, wherever she might be. "I'll find you," he murmured, "and I'll do everything I can to help you." With that promise echoing in his mind, Ethan drove away, leaving the park behind, but carrying with him a new purpose and an unshakable determination to change the fate of a girl he had yet to truly know, but who already held a special place in his heart. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Maple Street, a neighborhood of modest homes and rundown buildings, just a few miles from the park where Ethan had spent the last several days. Following the vague directions from the flower lady, he now found himself in a completely different world, the gleaming downtown skyscrapers visible in the distance as a constant reminder of the gap between these two worlds. Ethan slowed his luxury car, feeling uncomfortably conspicuous. Children played in the street, stopping to gape as he passed. Adults watched him from worn porches with a mixture of curiosity and distrust. His Italian suit and the immaculate shine of his vehicle screamed outsider in a place where every cent was counted carefully. Parking in front of a small corner grocery store, Ethan took a deep breath before stepping out. The smell of fried food and uncollected trash hung in the air, so different from the aroma of freshly cut grass and flowers in the park, where he'd spent so much time lately. "Hey, mister," a young voice called. Ethan turned to see a boy of about 10, wearing tattered clothes but sporting a bright smile. "You lost people like you don't come around here much." Ethan forced a smile, trying to appear less out of place than he felt. "Actually, I'm looking for someone, a girl named Chloe. Do you know her?" The boy's smile faded slightly. Chloe, lots of Chloes around here. Which one? She's about 5, has blonde hair, Ethan began, but was interrupted by a gruff voice coming from the grocery store. Billy, stop bothering the gentleman and come help me in here. The boy shrugged apologetically and ran into the store, leaving Ethan alone on the cracked sidewalk. Determined, Ethan started walking down the street, his expensive shoes clicking on the uneven concrete. He stopped in front of a small playground where some children played on rusted equipment. A woman sitting on a nearby bench watched him wearily. Excuse me. Ethan approached, trying to sound as friendly as possible. I'm looking for a girl named Chloe. She's about 5 with blonde hair. The woman frowned. Why are you looking for her? Are you from social services? Ethan hesitated, realizing how his presence might raise suspicions. No, I'm not from social services. I saw her in Central Park and I'm worried about her. I want to help. The woman's expression softened slightly, but the distrust remained in her eyes. Look, Mr. Folks around here take care of their own. If that Chloe you're looking for lives around here, she's got people looking out for her. Ethan nodded, understanding the community's protective instinct. I understand, but if you see her, could you let her know someone wants to help her? No strings attached, no pressure. The woman studied him for a moment before giving a small nod. I'll pass on the message, but I'm not promising anything. Thanking her, Ethan continued walking through the neighborhood. With each step, he felt more and more out of his element. He passed narrow alleys where clothes hung from improvised lines, blocking the little sunlight. He saw teenagers gathered on corners, casting suspicious looks his way. Entire families crowded into small apartments, living lives that would fit into the size of his living room. In a small square, Ethan spotted a group of elderly ladies chatting animatedly. He decided to try again. Excuse me, ladies, he approached, attempting to appear as non-threatening as possible. I'm looking for a girl named Chloe, blonde hair, about 5 years old. One of the ladies, gray-haired with a face lined by time, spoke up. Oh, yes, I think I know who you're talking about. The lonely little thing, right? Ethan's heart quickened. Yes, that could be her. Do you see her often? The lady shrugged. Once in a while she passes through here, always alone. She seems like a sad little thing. Poor dear, do you know where she lives? Ethan asked, trying not to sound too eager. The ladies exchanged looks. We're not sure, another replied, but I think it's in one of those old buildings near the end of Oak Street. You know, the ones that look like they're about to collapse. Ethan thanked them and headed in the direction indicated. Oak Street was even more run down than the others, with buildings that leaned precariously, their peeling facades telling stories of years of neglect. Walking slowly, scanning each window, every door, hoping to catch a glimpse of Chloe, Ethan was approached by a middle-aged man. Hey, you, the man called, his voice rough. What are you doing here looking for trouble? Ethan raised his hands in a pacifying gesture. No, sir, I'm just looking for someone, a girl named Chloe. The man narrowed his eyes. Chloe, the little one, who's always by herself? Yes, Ethan exclaimed, hopeful. Do you know her? I see her sure know her. That's another story, the man replied, scratching his scruffy chin. She comes through here most days, always in a hurry, always looking over her shoulder like someone's after her. Ethan's worry grew. Have you ever seen where she goes? The man pointed vaguely down the street. Over that way, I think, but listen, friend, whatever you want with her, be careful, there's something off about the whole thing. Ethan thanked him and kept walking, his heart heavy with all the information he'd gathered. Chloe was here, somewhere in this maze of narrow streets and decaying buildings, so close, yet so far. As the sun began to set, Ethan realized he had to leave. He hadn't found Chloe, but now he had a better idea of where to look. More importantly, he'd seen firsthand the conditions she was likely living in. On his drive back to the gleaming, polished world he was used to, Ethan felt a mix of frustration for not finding Chloe, gratitude for the privileged life he and Olivia led, and a renewed determination to make a difference, not just for Chloe, but for all the children in this forgotten neighborhood. As he drove back toward the city's bright lights, Ethan knew he would never see things the same way again. The contrast between the two worlds was painfully clear now, and he was more determined than ever to build a bridge between them. "I'll find you, Chloe," he murmured to himself, eyes fixed on the road ahead. "And when I do, I'll do everything I can to help not just you, but everyone here." With that promise, Ethan left the mysterious neighborhood behind, knowing he would return soon. The search was far from over, and he was only beginning to grasp the true scope of the challenge before him. Dinner at the Walker mansion was usually a time of joy and lively conversation, with Olivia enthusiastically sharing stories about her day at school and Ethan listening intently, grateful for that precious time with his daughter. But tonight, the atmosphere was different. A tense silence hovered over the table, broken only by the clink of silverware and Ethan's occasional pensive sighs. Olivia, ever observant, noticed the change in her father's behavior. Her big blue eyes studied him with a mixture of curiosity and concern as she idly poked at the food on her plate. "Dad!" She finally broke the silence, her voice small but determined. "Are you still thinking about that girl from the park?" Ethan nearly choked on his wine, caught off guard by her direct question. He set his glass down, trying to buy time to formulate a response. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" Olivia shrugged, a surprisingly mature gesture for her 5 years. "You seem sad and distracted like you were that day in the park." After the girl shouted, Ethan felt his heart tighten. Olivia was often scarily good at reading his emotions. He wrestled internally, torn between wanting to be honest with his daughter and protecting her from a truth he barely understood himself. "Yes, Olivia," he finally admitted, choosing his words carefully. "I'm thinking about her. I'm worried about her." Olivia's eyes widened with interest. "Why is she sick?" Ethan shook his head, growing increasingly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "No, not that I know of, but I think she might need help." Olivia frowned, processing this information. "Is that why she said she was my sister, Dad? Because she needs help?" The question hit Ethan like a punch to the stomach. How could he explain something so complex to a 5-year-old? How could he talk about the possibility of a twin sister without upending Olivia's world? "Honey," he began, leaning forward to take Olivia's small hand in his. "Sometimes people say things when they're confused or scared. We don't know why she said that, but I'm trying to find out." Olivia nodded slowly, but Ethan could see the gears turning in her inquisitive mind. "But she really looked a lot like us. She even had hair like mine." Ethan felt a surge of panic. Olivia had noticed the resemblance, of course. She was bright and observant. He needed to tread carefully now, very carefully. "Lots of people have blonde hair like yours, sweetheart," he said gently. "It doesn't necessarily mean they're related." Olivia tilted her head, clearly not convinced. "But what if she really is my sister? Wouldn't it be cool to have a sister?" Ethan felt his heart break a little at Olivia's innocent enthusiasm. If only she knew the truth, that Chloe might be living in poverty, possibly in danger. "Olivia," he said, his voice serious, "we shouldn't jump to conclusions. We don't know who that girl is or why she said what she did. It's important not to get our hopes up." "Okay?" Olivia pouted, clearly disappointed by his evasive response. "But you're going to find her right, Dad, to help her." Ethan felt a wave of love and pride at his daughter's compassion. "I'm trying, sweetheart, but it's complicated. There are a lot of things we need to consider, like what Olivia pressed, her curiosity insatiable." Ethan sighed, feeling the weight of complications he couldn't share with a 5-year-old. Legal questions, emotional implications, the possible impact on their lives. "Well," he began, trying to simplify, "we have to make sure we're doing the right thing, that we're not stepping in where we shouldn't, and we need to think about how this could affect our family." Olivia was quiet for a moment, absorbing her father's words. Then, with the simple and direct logic of a child, she said, "But if she needs help, we should help her right. That's what you always taught me." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. Olivia was right, of course. He had always taught her the importance of helping others, of using their privilege for good. And here he was, hesitating, torn between protecting his daughter and doing the right thing. "You're right, Olivia," he finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "We'll do what we can to help, but you have to understand it might be a long, complicated process, and in the end, things might not be exactly how we imagine." Olivia nodded solemnly, looking older than her 5 years. "I understand, Dad. I just want her to be okay. And who knows, maybe we can be friends." Ethan gave a sad smile, pulling Olivia into a tight hug. "Maybe, sweetheart, maybe." As he held his daughter, Ethan felt the weight of his decisions more than ever. He was walking a fine line, trying to balance the truth, Olivia's protection, and the need to help Chloe. Each step forward seemed to bring more questions, more complications. But looking at Olivia, seeing her compassion and innocence, Ethan knew he couldn't give up. For Olivia, for Chloe, and for the man he wanted to be in his daughter's eyes, he had to keep going. "We'll figure this out together. Okay?" he whispered, kissing the top of Olivia's head. Olivia nodded against his chest, and in that moment, despite all the uncertainties, Ethan felt a renewed surge of determination. Whatever the outcome, he would face it with Olivia by his side, guided by the love and compassion his daughter so naturally displayed. The path ahead was unclear, but with Olivia as his moral compass, Ethan knew he would find the right way, no matter how difficult the journey. As the days passed, Ethan's determination to find Chloe grew in proportion to his frustration. Each new day brought renewed hope, only to end in disappointment. But Ethan Walker was not a man who gave up easily. If he could build a tech empire from nothing, surely he could find one little girl in his own city. His first stop was Riverdale Elementary School, the one closest to the park where he'd first seen Chloe. Wearing his immaculate suit and charming smile, Ethan managed to get a meeting with the principal, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Davis. "Mr. Walker," she said, adjusting her glasses. "I understand your concern, but I can't just give out information about our students." Ethan nodded sympathetically. "I completely understand, Mrs. Davis. I'm not asking for names or addresses. I just want to know if you have a student who matches the description." The principal hesitated, clearly torn between professional duty and the desire to help. "Well, we do have several blonde 5-year-olds, but none that I know named Chloe or who specifically matched the situation." You described, disappointed, Ethan thanked her and left his business card, asking that she contact him if she found anything. Leaving the school, he mentally noted to check other nearby schools in the coming weeks. His next stop was Sunnydale Park, a few miles away. Smaller and less frequented than Central Park, Ethan thought Chloe might come there to avoid crowds. He approached an ice cream vendor who seemed to know all the regular park-goers. A little blonde girl all alone, the man scratched his head, thinking, "Now that you mention it, I think I've seen a girl like that a few times. She always looked like she was in a hurry. You know, like she was running from something." Ethan's heart raced. "Do you know where she went or where she came from?" The vendor pointed vaguely to the east. "Over that way, I think there are some housing projects in that direction. It's a tough area." Ethan thanked him, buying an ice cream he had no intention of eating, and headed east. The housing projects were a concrete jungle, gray buildings towering against the sky. He spent hours walking there, showing a photo of Olivia. The resemblance was undeniable, and asking about Chloe. Some people nodded in recognition, others looked away, suspicious. An elderly man in a wheelchair at one building's entrance beckoned him over. "Hey, you," he said, his voice rough. "You looking for that lonely little girl, aren't you?" Ethan approached, hopeful. "Yes, sir. Do you know her?" The old man shrugged. "I see her sure, but know her not." Really, she comes by sometimes, always alone, always looking scared, but I've never seen her enter any of these buildings." Frustrated but grateful for the info, Ethan thanked him and continued his search. Over the following days, he visited 3 more schools, 2 more parks, and countless neighborhoods. Everywhere, the pattern repeated. People who had seen Chloe noted her loneliness and apparent fear, but no one who truly knew her or where she lived. Ethan's frustration grew with every lead that led nowhere. How could a child be so visible and yet so invisible? Who was taking care of her? Why did no one seem to truly care? One night, after another fruitless day of searching, Ethan found himself sitting in his home office, surrounded by maps of the city and scattered notes. He drew lines, marked points, trying to find a pattern in Chloe's sightings. Olivia entered quietly, her small bare feet making almost no sound on the luxurious carpet. "Dad," she called softly. "Are you still looking for my sister?" Ethan turned, surprised. He hadn't realized how late it was. "Olivia, sweetheart, you should be in bed." She came closer, her curious eyes taking in the papers on the desk. "You're going to find her right." Dad Ethan pulled Olivia onto his lap, feeling the weight of his promise. "I'm trying, my love. I'm trying really hard." Olivia rested her head on his chest, her fingers fiddling absently with his tie. "You know, Dad, when I lose something, you always tell me to think about where I last saw it." Ethan frowned, intrigued by his daughter's logic. "Yes, well," Olivia continued, "you saw her last in our park, right? Maybe she'll come back there." Ethan blinked, surprised by Olivia's simple yet possibly brilliant suggestion. He had broadened his search so much that he might have neglected the most obvious place. "You're a genius, you know that," he said, kissing the top of Olivia's head. She beamed, proud. "So we'll find her." Ethan nodded, feeling renewed determination. "Yes, sweetheart, we will." As he carried Olivia back to bed, Ethan felt a mix of emotions. The frustration of the past few days was still there, but now there was a spark of hope. Maybe Olivia was right. Maybe the answer lay where it all began. Lying in his own bed later, Ethan made a silent promise. Tomorrow he would return to Central Park, and this time he wouldn't leave until he found Chloe or a solid lead on her whereabouts. The search had intensified, and Ethan was more determined than ever to find the truth, no matter the cost. The late afternoon sun cast golden shadows across Riverdale's Central Park, painting the scene in warm autumn hues. Ethan Walker, seated on his usual bench, watched children play, his eyes constantly scanning the area for a familiar face. After weeks of fruitless searching, he had come back to the starting point, following Olivia's simple yet wise suggestion. The fatigue of the search weighed on his shoulders, but the determination in his eyes remained unshaken. Each day that passed without finding Chloe was another day she might need help, and that pained him deeply. Then he saw her. At the far end of the park, near an old oak tree, stood a small, solitary figure. Blonde hair shining in the setting sun, worn clothes, and a wary look that seemed out of place on someone so young. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Chloe. He stood slowly, fearing any sudden movement might scare her away. Each step was calculated, his body tense with anticipation and the fear she might disappear again. When he was just a few yards away, Chloe noticed him. Her eyes widened in recognition, and for a moment Ethan feared she would run. But she remained still, seemingly frozen in place, her small fists clenched at her sides. "Hi," Ethan said softly, stopping at a safe distance. "Do you remember me?" Chloe nodded hesitantly, her gaze never leaving his. "You're the dad of the girl on the swing," she replied, her voice almost a whisper. Ethan smiled gently, relieved she remembered. "That's right. My name is Ethan, and yours is Chloe, isn't it?" The girl seemed surprised that he knew her name, but she nodded again. "Chloe," Ethan continued, keeping his voice calm and gentle. "I've been looking for you. I've been worried ever since that day." Chloe frowned, obvious confusion on her young face. Why? The simple, direct question caught Ethan off guard. How could he explain the complexities of his situation to a child? Well, he began carefully. You seemed alone and maybe in need of help. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Chloe looked away, kicking a small rock with her worn sneaker. I'm fine, she mumbled, but her voice had a sadness that broke Ethan's heart. Slowly, Ethan crouched down to meet her eye level. Chloe, it's okay if you're not fine. Sometimes we need help, and there's no shame in that. Her eyes met his again, and for a moment, Ethan saw the vulnerability behind her brave front. You really want to help? Yes, Ethan answered without hesitation. Very much, Chloe seemed to weigh this for a moment, her small face a mask of conflicting emotions. Finally, she spoke. Sometimes it's hard. Mom works a lot, and we don't always have enough to eat. Ethan felt his heart constrict. The poverty he suspected was real, and hearing it confirmed by such a young voice was painful. I understand, he said softly. Where is your mom now, Chloe? She's collecting cardboard, Chloe answered, her voice low and slightly ashamed. Ethan nodded sympathetically, struggling to maintain composure in the face of Chloe's harsh reality. Chloe, do you think could take me to her? I'd really like to talk to your mom, see how I can help both of you. Chloe hesitated, biting her lower lip nervously. I don't know. Mom always says not to talk to strangers or bring them home. Your mom's right to say that? Ethan agreed. It's very important to be careful, but I promise, I only want to help. Maybe we can find your mom together. Chloe considered the proposal for a long moment, her eyes studying Ethan intently, as though trying to determine if he could be trusted. Finally, she gave a small nod. Okay, but if Mom says you have to leave, you will write absolutely, Ethan promised, standing up slowly. I'll respect your mom's wishes entirely. Chloe glanced at the sky, noticing the sun beginning to set. It's getting late. Mom should be on her way home now. She usually comes back around this time. Ethan felt a mix of anxiety and hope. I see. Do you think we can go there to where your mom works? Chloe hesitated again, then slowly nodded. Okay, it's in the neighborhood we live in, not too far from here. Thank you, Chloe, Ethan said, his voice filled with gratitude. This means a lot to me. I promise I'll be respectful and careful. With one last hesitant glance, Chloe started walking, Ethan following a short distance behind. They left the park and headed into the city streets, toward the neighborhood where Chloe and her mother lived. As they walked, Ethan felt a swirl of emotions: relief at finally finding Chloe, anxiety about what lay ahead, and a profound sadness for the difficult life this little girl, so much like his Olivia, was enduring. Ethan knew that what was about to happen could change everything, for Chloe, for Olivia, for himself. As they neared Chloe's neighborhood, he braced himself for what might be the most important encounter of his life, the one that would finally reveal the truth about Chloe and potentially alter many lives forever. The sun was beginning to set as Ethan and Chloe left the park, bathing the city in a golden twilight. The wide, well-maintained streets of downtown gradually gave way to narrower, more neglected roads as they approached Chloe's neighborhood. Ethan watched the small figure ahead of him, noticing how Chloe navigated the streets with a familiarity that contrasted sharply with her fragile appearance. She glanced back at him occasionally, as though to confirm he was still there, her eyes a mix of caution and curiosity. Chloe, Ethan said softly, breaking the silence between them. You remind me so much of my daughter Olivia. Chloe slowed her pace, allowing Ethan to walk beside her. The girl on the swing, she asked, her voice a blend of interest and hesitation. Ethan nodded, a gentle smile on his face. Yes, exactly. You two are the same age. Did you know? Chloe's eyes widened slightly. Really? And what's she like? Ethan felt his heart tighten at the question. How to describe Olivia without making Chloe feel left out or envious? He chose his words carefully. Well, she has blonde hair just like yours, he began, and the same bright blue eyes. Actually, when you showed up at the park that day, I was shocked by how much you looked alike. Chloe absorbed this quietly, her young face scrunched in concentration. Does she like playing at the park? She finally asked. Ethan smiled. Oh yes, she loves the swings, just like you seemed to that day. As they walked, Ethan noted the changes in their surroundings. The buildings looked more worn, the sidewalks more cracked. Children played in the street using makeshift toys, watching the two strangers curiously. Where does Olivia live? Chloe asked, her voice carrying a hint of anxiety. Ethan hesitated, aware of the disparity between the girls' lives. We live in a big house near the city center, he answered honestly but carefully. Chloe nodded, her eyes drifting over the rundown buildings around them. Must be nice, she murmured, almost to herself. Ethan felt his heart clench again. The contrast between Olivia's world and Chloe's was painfully clear now. While his daughter enjoyed a spacious room full of toys, Chloe likely shared a cramped space with her mother. Ethan said gently, "Would you like to meet Olivia someday?" The girl stopped suddenly, turning to look at Ethan with a mix of hope and fear. I can, of course you can, Ethan replied with an encouraging smile. I'm sure she'd love to meet you too. Chloe seemed to wrestle with a storm of emotions. But what if she doesn't like me? What if she thinks I'm different? Ethan knelt down, meeting her eyes. Chloe, listen. Olivia has a huge heart. She doesn't care about things like clothes or where someone lives. She just wants friends. And to have fun. Isn't that what you want too? Chloe nodded slowly, a small smile forming on her lips. Continuing their walk, Ethan looked at Chloe through new eyes. Despite her difficult circumstances, there was a resilience in her that impressed him. He wondered how it might have been if she and Olivia had grown up together, as sisters. As they ventured deeper into Chloe's neighborhood, Ethan's determination grew. Regardless of what he discovered, he was committed to helping this child. The stark contrast between Chloe and Olivia's lives was a powerful reminder of the privileges his daughter enjoyed and the responsibility that came with those privileges. Finally, Chloe pointed to a rundown building up ahead. "That's where we live," she said, her voice a mix of pride and shame. Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. They were about to turn a corner, both literally and figuratively. Whatever happened next, he knew his life and the lives of Chloe and Olivia would never be the same. "Are you ready?" he asked Chloe gently. The girl looked at him, then at the building, then back at Ethan. With a courage beyond her years, she nodded. "I am together." They turned the corner, prepared to face whatever fate had in store. Ethan knew they were just steps away from discovering the truth, a truth that could change everything, and he was determined to face it, no matter how difficult it might be. Rounding the corner, Ethan and Chloe came upon a scene that immediately captured the daily struggle faced by so many in that neighborhood. A thin woman with disheveled blonde hair tied back in a messy bun stood bent over a shopping cart filled with cardboard and other recyclables. Her gloved hands, torn and worn, worked tirelessly, sorting through her day's haul. Mom Chloe called, her voice a mixture of relief and anxiety. The woman spun around abruptly, her eyes widening at the sight of her daughter, accompanied by a well-dressed stranger. In an instant, her expression shifted from surprise to fear, and she dropped the cardboard she was holding, rushing towards Chloe. "Chloe, who is this man? What's going on?" she asked, pulling the girl close to her protectively. Ethan stepped forward, his hands raised in a calming gesture. "Please don't be afraid. My name is Ethan Walker. I think we need to talk." The woman, who Ethan assumed was Ashley, narrowed her eyes in suspicion. "About what? What do you want with my daughter Chloe?" still clutched in her mother's arms, spoke softly. "Mom, he's the father of the girl on the swing, the one I told you about." Ashley's eyes widened in recognition, and for a split second, Ethan saw panic flash through her gaze. She knew, somehow, she knew exactly who he was and why he was there. "Ma'am," Ethan began carefully. "I realize this must be scary and confusing, but I promise I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to understand the truth." Ashley glanced around nervously, as though looking for an escape, but something in Ethan's gentle expression made her pause. "Not here," she finally said, her voice trembling. Let's go to our apartment. This isn't something to discuss out in the open." Ethan nodded, grateful for the opportunity. They walked in silence to a dilapidated building a few blocks away. The elevator was broken, so they climbed 4 flights of stairs to reach a small apartment. The contrast with Ethan's mansion could not have been starker. The space was tiny, with a single bed against the wall, a small table with 2 chairs, and an improvised kitchen in the corner. The walls bore damp stains, and a musty smell hung in the air. Ashley gestured for Ethan to take one of the chairs as she sat in the other, pulling Chloe onto her lap. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sounds were the ticking of a cheap wall clock and the distant drone of traffic outside. Finally, Ashley broke the silence. "You know, don't you?" she asked in a near whisper. Ethan nodded slowly. "I suspect, but I need to hear it from you. Please tell me the truth." Ashley closed her eyes, hugging Chloe tighter. When she opened them again, they were filled with tears. 5 years ago, she began, her voice shaking, "I gave birth to identical twin girls." Ethan's heart pounded, though he already suspected. Hearing the confirmation out loud felt surreal. Ashley continued, words now spilling out as though a dam had broken. "I could barely support myself. I had no steady job, no family to help me. When I found out I was having twins, I panicked. How could I care for 2 babies? Tears flowed freely down Ashley's face. Chloe watched her mother, confused and worried. "It was the hardest decision of my life," Ashley sobbed. "I knew I couldn't give both of them the life they deserved, so I made a terrible choice. I decided one of them would have the chance at a better life." Ethan felt a knot forming in his throat. He could see the pain in Ashley's eyes, the guilt she had carried for years. "I did my research," she went on. "I looked for the wealthiest part of town, and one cold night I wrapped one of the girls in a cheap blanket and left her on the steps of a mansion. I prayed she'd be found quickly, that she'd have a life I could never provide." Ethan closed his eyes, recalling that night vividly. The crying that woke him, the surprise at opening the door to find a baby on his doorstep. "It was your mansion," Ashley finished, locking eyes with Ethan. "You found her, didn't you?" Ethan nodded, momentarily unable to speak. When he finally did, his voice was hoarse with emotion. "Yes, I found her and I adopted her. Her name is Olivia now, Chloe," who had been silent until then, looked between her mother and Ethan, her eyes wide with realization. "Mom, I have a sister." Ashley clutched Chloe tightly, tears streaming. "Yes, my love, you have a twin sister. Forgive me for never telling you I didn't know how." Ethan watched, heartbroken by Ashley's anguish and Chloe's confusion. He thought of Olivia at home, unaware that her life was about to change forever. "Ashley," Ethan said softly, "I can't imagine how difficult that decision was, but you need to know that Olivia has had a good life. She's loved, happy, healthy." Ashley nodded through her tears. "Thank you. Knowing that helps a little, but it doesn't erase what I did." Ethan leaned forward, voice gentle but firm. "What's done is done. We can't change the past, but we can decide what to do. Now, Olivia deserves to know the truth, and Chloe deserves to know her sister." Chloe glanced at Ethan, her eyes bright with a mix of fear and hope. "Can I really meet my sister?" "Of course you can, sweetheart," Ethan replied with a kind smile. "In fact, I think it's time for this family to be reunited." Ashley looked terrified at the idea. And what if Olivia hates us? What if she wants nothing to do with us?" Ethan shook his head. "I know my daughter. She has a big heart. It will be a shock, of course, but I'm sure she'll want to meet you both." He paused, glancing around the small apartment. And Ashley, I want you to know I'm here to help, not just to bring the girls together, but with anything else you might need." Ashley opened her mouth to protest, but Ethan held up a hand. "It's not charity, it's what's right. These girls are sisters, they deserve the chance to grow up together, to know each other." Silence settled in the tiny apartment as everyone absorbed the gravity of the moment. A family torn apart by desperate circumstances was on the verge of coming together. There would be challenges, intense emotions, painful questions, but looking at Chloe, seeing Olivia's reflection in her hopeful eyes, Ethan knew it would be worth it. This was only the beginning of a new journey, one of healing, reconciliation, and above all, love. So he said softly, "Are you ready to meet Olivia?" The sun had already set by the time Ethan left Ashley and Chloe's tiny apartment, his mind awash with emotions and thoughts. The day's revelations weighed heavily on his heart, and he couldn't shake the image of the stark contrast between Olivia's life and that of her newly discovered twin sister. Driving back to his mansion, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Chloe and Ashley. That cramped, run-down apartment, Ashley's daily struggle to put food on the table, the childhood Chloe was missing out on. It all haunted him. How could he return to his world of luxury, knowing that Olivia's twin lived like that? When he arrived home, Olivia was already asleep. He slipped quietly into her room, watching his daughter as she slumbered. The spacious bedroom, full of toys and comforts, felt almost obscene now, knowing the conditions Chloe lived in. That night, Ethan barely slept. He spent hours in his office, doing research, making calculations, drafting plans. By sunrise, he had made a decision. He couldn't change the past, but he could do something about the future. After dropping Olivia off at school, Ethan drove back to Ashley's neighborhood. The contrast between the two worlds seemed even starker in the daylight. He climbed the deteriorating steps of her building, his heart pounding in his chest. Ashley answered the door, looking exhausted and apprehensive. Chloe peeked curiously from behind her. Mr. Walker, Ashley said, surprised. "I didn't expect you so soon. Please call me Ethan," he replied with a gentle smile. "May I come in? There's something important I'd like to discuss with you." Ashley hesitated for a moment before opening the door wider, allowing Ethan inside. The small apartment seemed even smaller in the daylight. "Chloe, sweetie," Ashley said, "why don't you go play in the hallway for a bit? I need to talk to Mr. Ethan." Chloe nodded, casting a last curious glance at Ethan before stepping out. Once alone, Ethan got straight to the point. "Ashley, I spent the night thinking about everything about Chloe, about Olivia, about you, and I've come to a conclusion. I cannot in good conscience let this situation continue. As it is." Ashley stiffened, her eyes filling with fear. You're not going to take Chloe away from me, are you?" "No," Ethan exclaimed, realizing how his words might sound. "No, not at all. What I mean is, I can't let you and Chloe keep living in these conditions, not when I have the means to help." Ashley relaxed slightly, though she still looked wary. "What do you mean?" Ethan took a deep breath. "I want to propose a plan to improve your living situation and ensure Chloe and Olivia can grow up close to each other like sisters should." He then outlined the plan he'd formed overnight. He offered to rent a decent apartment for Ashley and Chloe in a safe neighborhood near his own home. He proposed covering Chloe's education, giving her the same opportunities Olivia had. Furthermore, he offered to help Ashley find stable employment, possibly in his own company. "And for medical bills, food, clothing, everything will be covered," Ethan concluded. "I want to make sure you and Chloe have a comfortable, secure life." Ashley listened in silence, tears welling in her eyes. When Ethan finished, she shook her head, looking stunned. It's very kind of you, Ethan, but I can't accept all that. It's too much we've managed on our own so far." We can keep Ethan gently interrupted. "Ashley, please think carefully. I'm not offering this out of pity or charity. I'm doing this because Chloe is Olivia's sister. They're family, and family takes care of each other." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Besides, think of Chloe. She deserves the chance to know her sister, to have a happy, healthy childhood. And you deserve the peace of mind that comes from knowing your daughter is safe and cared for. Ashley bit her lip, clearly torn. But what if it doesn't work out? What if Olivia doesn't like us, or if you change your mind? Ethan smiled gently. Olivia has a huge heart. I'm sure she'll love getting to know Chloe and you. As for me, changing my mind, we can draw up a legal agreement if that would make you feel more secure. But I promise, Ashley, this is not a whim. It's a commitment I'm prepared to uphold for the long run. Ashley remained silent for a long moment, tears quietly spilling down her cheeks. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. Why are you doing all this? Ethan felt his own eyes grow misty. Because when I look at Chloe, I see Olivia. I see the chance fate gave us to fix something that was torn apart so long ago, and because I believe every child deserves a fair shot at life. He paused, wiping away a tear. Besides, Ashley, you made an incredibly difficult decision 5 years ago, motivated by love and the desire to give one of your girls a better life. Now we have the chance to give both girls that better life. Ashley covered her face with her hands, silently sobbing. Ethan waited patiently, giving her the time she needed to process everything. Finally, she lowered her hands, her eyes red but determined. Okay, she said softly. Okay, let's try for Chloe, for Olivia, for our family. Ethan felt immense relief flood him. He extended his hand, which Ashley took hesitantly. Thank you, Ashley. I promise we'll make this work. At that moment, Chloe ran back into the apartment, her eyes bright with excitement. Mom? Mom, can I really meet my sister? Ashley knelt, hugging Chloe tightly. Yes, my love, you'll meet your sister and we'll have a new chance, a new life. Ethan watched the scene with a mix of joy and apprehension. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be adjustments, challenges, possibly conflicts. But looking at Chloe, seeing Olivia's reflection in her hopeful eyes, he knew he had made the right decision. This was more than just an important choice. It was the start of a new journey, one of healing, reconciliation, and above all, love. Well, Ethan said, smiling at Chloe and Ashley, how about we start looking for a new home for you? Chloe let out a delighted squeal, jumping up and down with excitement. Ashley, still with tears in her eyes, managed a small smile. As they left the cramped apartment, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. He knew the coming weeks and months would be full of changes and challenges. He would have to explain everything to Olivia, help Ashley and Chloe adapt to a new life, and navigate the emotional complexities of integrating two parts of a long-separated family. But as he watched Chloe holding her mother's hand while they walked down the stairs, Ethan knew it would all be worth it. This was more than a major decision. It was the beginning of a new phase, one of healing, reconciliation, and above all, love. And as they got into his car, ready to start this new stage of their lives, Ethan made a silent promise to himself, to Olivia, to Chloe, and to Ashley. He would do everything in his power to ensure this uniquely reunited family had every chance to thrive and be happy. Riverdale's Central Park, the stage for so many significant events in recent months, was bathed in the golden light of an autumn afternoon. The multicolored leaves danced softly in the breeze, creating an almost magical setting for what was about to unfold. Ethan arrived first, holding Olivia's hand. The girl, usually chatty and full of energy, was unusually quiet, her big blue eyes scanning the park nervously, searching for a face she knew would be identical to her own. Dad, Olivia said, her voice small and hesitant. What if she doesn't like me? Ethan knelt, meeting her eyes. Olivia's sweetheart Chloe is going to love you. You're sisters. Remember, you have a special bond. Olivia nodded, but Ethan could see the mix of emotions in her eyes. Excitement, fear, curiosity, all swirling in a storm he could barely imagine. Not far away, Ashley was walking toward the park, Chloe clinging tightly to her hand. The girl who usually seemed so confident in her own neighborhood now looked small and vulnerable. Mom Chloe whispered, "What if she's really different from me? What if we don't have anything in common?" Ashley stopped, crouching to look in her daughter's eyes. "Chloe, my love, you two are more alike than you think. And even if you're different in some ways, that only makes your relationship more special. Remember, she's your sister." Chloe took a deep breath, summoning courage, and they continued walking. Ethan spotted Ashley and Chloe first, his heart giving a leap as he saw them approach. He gently called Olivia's attention. "Look, sweetheart, there they are." Olivia turned, her eyes widening when she saw Chloe. It was like looking in a mirror, but a mirror that showed a slightly different version of herself. The same blonde hair, the same blue eyes, the same face shape, but Chloe was thinner, her skin a bit more tanned, her clothes simpler. The two families approached each other slowly, as if afraid to break the magic of the moment. When they were only a few steps away, they stopped. For a long moment, no one spoke. Olivia and Chloe stared at each other, taking in every detail. It was as though the rest of the world had vanished, leaving only the two of them in their own bubble of reality. Olivia finally broke the silence. "Hi," she said softly, a small, shy smile tugging at her lips. "I'm Olivia Chloe," returned the shy smile. "Hi, I'm Chloe." Another moment of silence followed, both girls still studying each other. Then, almost in unison, they each took a step forward. "Do you like swings?" Olivia asked, her voice a bit more confident now. Chloe's face lit up. "I love swings, me too," Olivia exclaimed, her excitement growing. "Want to go play?" Chloe glanced at Ashley, who nodded encouragingly. "Go ahead, sweetheart, have fun." The two girls ran toward the swings, leaving Ethan and Ashley behind, both watching with a swirl of emotions. "They seem to be getting along well," Ashley commented, her voice trembling with emotion. Ethan nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "Yes, they do." On the swings, Olivia and Chloe chatted excitedly as they soared higher and higher. "What's your favorite color?" Olivia asked. Blue Chloe replied. "What about you, purple?" Olivia said, laughing. "But blue is my second favorite." The questions and answers flowed easily between them as they discovered both similarities and differences. Both loved strawberry ice cream, though Chloe preferred tag while Olivia liked hide and seek. They both loved drawing, but Olivia enjoyed sketching animals while Chloe preferred landscapes. Ethan and Ashley sat on a nearby bench, watching the girls interact. "It's amazing," Ashley murmured. "It's like they've always known each other." Ethan smiled, feeling a surge of emotion. "I think in a way they always have, even without knowing it." After some time on the swings, the girls decided to explore the rest of the park. They climbed together up the slide, coming down squealing with delight. Then they headed to the sandbox, where they started building an elaborate sandcastle. "Look," Mom Chloe shouted, pointing to the tower she and Olivia had built. "We made a castle." Ashley smiled, waving to them. "It's beautiful, sweeties." Olivia then pulled Chloe by the hand. "Come on, let's make flower necklaces." They ran over to a patch of grass where they picked daisies and dandelions. Sitting on the ground, they wove the flowers into colorful necklaces for each other. Ethan watched, amazed at how effortlessly the girls had bonded. It was as though the universe was correcting a mistake, bringing together two halves of a whole that should never have been separated. "They're so alike," he remarked to Ashley, "not just in looks, but in their gestures, the way they laugh." Ashley nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "Yes, it's like they're making up for lost time." As the afternoon wore on, Olivia and Chloe's connection only seemed to deepen. They shared secrets, laughed at jokes only they understood, and at times appeared to communicate with just a look. At one point, Olivia asked Chloe, "Have you ever felt like something was missing, even if you didn't know what?" Chloe nodded solemnly. "Yes, a lot, especially when I saw other kids with their siblings." Olivia smiled, taking Chloe's hand. Well, now it's not missing anymore, right? Chloe smiled back, squeezing Olivia's hand. No. Now it's complete. Ethan and Ashley exchanged emotional glances, both feeling the magnitude and beauty of the moment. When the sun began to set, painting the sky with orange and pink hues, Ethan and Ashley called the girls over. "It's getting late, sweeties," Ashley said gently. "We need to go." The girls looked at each other, a flash of panic crossing their faces. "But we'll see each other again, won't we?" Olivia asked anxiously. Ethan knelt down, smiling at both of them. "Of course, in fact, we have a surprise for you two." Chloe and Olivia drew closer, curious. Ashley began. "Remember I told you we were moving?" Chloe nodded. "Well," Ethan continued, "you're going to be living very close by, so you'll be able to see each other whenever you want." The girls' faces lit up with matching radiant smiles. "Really?" they asked in unison, causing the adults to burst into laughter. "Really," Ashley confirmed. "We're going to be neighbors." Olivia and Chloe hugged each other, jumping for joy. The scene warmed Ethan and Ashley's hearts, a visible testament to the unbreakable bond between the sisters. As they prepared to leave, the girls exchanged one more tight hug. "See you tomorrow," Sister Olivia said, her voice filled with affection. "See you tomorrow," Sister Chloe echoed, her eyes shining with happiness. Ethan and Ashley watched the scene with a mix of joy and emotion. The day had surpassed their most optimistic expectations. Not only had the girls gotten along, but they seemed to have formed an immediate, profound connection. As they walked back to their respective cars, Ethan reflected on the journey that had led them here. From that fateful day in the park when Chloe shouted she was Olivia's sister to this moment of family union, it had been a roller coaster of emotions and revelations. Looking at Olivia, who was still excitedly waving goodbye to Chloe, Ethan felt a wave of gratitude. Gratitude for the destiny that had reunited this family. Gratitude for Ashley's resilience, for Chloe's sweetness, and for Olivia's open, loving heart. Ashley, for her part, felt as though a massive burden had been lifted from her shoulders. The guilt she'd carried for so long was beginning to lift, replaced by a renewed hope for the future. As the sky darkened and the first stars appeared, two families left the park, not as strangers brought together by extraordinary circumstances, but as a single family, united by love and by the unbreakable bond between two sisters who had finally found each other. The sisters' reunion wasn't just a moment of coming together, but the beginning of a new journey, a journey of discovery, of growing together, of making up for lost time. And as Olivia and Chloe drifted off to sleep in their respective beds that night, both dreaming of their new sister and the adventures they'd share, Ethan and Ashley knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as the family they now were. The future was full of possibilities, shared laughter, whispered secrets, joined hands, and united hearts. The sisters' reunion was not an end, but a beginning, the start of a story of love, forgiveness, and family unity that would continue to unfold in the years to come. The weeks following that day in the park were a whirlwind of activity and emotion for the new, reunited family. True to his word, Ethan had found a spacious, comfortable apartment for Ashley and Chloe, only a few blocks from his own mansion. Moving day arrived on a bright, sunny Saturday morning. Ethan parked the moving truck in front of the old building where Ashley and Chloe lived, feeling a mix of emotions as he saw the few boxes and worn furniture that comprised their belongings. Olivia, eager to help, ran up to the apartment, carrying a box almost bigger than she was. "Chloe, where do you want me to put this?" Chloe, carefully wrapping the few dishes they owned, smiled at the sight of her sister. "Over in that corner is good Olivia." Thanks. Ashley watched the scene with tearful eyes, still barely believing how drastically her life had turned around. Ethan approached her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Ashley nodded, wiping away a tear. "Yes, it's just It's a lot to process a few weeks ago. I could barely pay the rent here. And now. Ethan smiled sympathetically. I know it's a big change, but you both deserve it. Ashley, Chloe deserves it. The move took most of the day, with the girls helping in their own way, often causing more chaos than assistance, but filling the air with laughter and lively chatter. When they finally arrived at the new apartment, the difference was night and day. It was spacious, well-lit, and furnished with new items Ethan had insisted on purchasing, a world away from Ashley and Chloe's old home. Mom, I have my own bedroom, and look, there's a desk for me to do my homework. Chloe ran from room to room, her eyes wide with amazement. Ashley followed her, equally awestruck. It's beautiful, isn't it, sweetheart? We'll have to thank Ethan a lot. Come on, let's organize your room. We can hang pictures on the wall, just like in my room. Olivia grabbed Chloe's hand. The girls rushed off to Chloe's new bedroom, already making plans for decoration. Ethan approached Ashley, who watched the girls with a tearful smile. So what do you think? It's perfect, Ethan. Ashley replied, her voice choked with emotion. I don't know how to thank you for all this. Ethan shook his head. You don't have to thank me. We're family now. Remember, that's what families do. In the days and weeks that followed, a new family dynamic began to form. The girls alternated between the two homes, spending some days with Ethan and others with Ashley. It was an adjustment for everyone, but one that brought more joy than challenges. Olivia, used to being an only child, sometimes found it hard to share Ethan's attention. There were moments of jealousy and small arguments between the sisters, but Ethan and Ashley worked together to help them navigate those feelings. Remember, Ethan often said, your sisters, the love we have for you, doesn't diminish when shared. It grows. Chloe, meanwhile, sometimes felt intimidated by Olivia's luxurious life. One afternoon, after a shopping trip where Olivia got several new toys, Chloe grew quiet and withdrawn. Ashley found her sitting alone in her bedroom. What's wrong, sweetheart? Chloe hesitated before replying. Mom, why couldn't we have things like that before Ashley's heart ached? She sat beside her daughter, pulling her into a hug. Oh, Chloe, I know it's hard to understand, but what matters now is we have a chance for a better life. And remember, the most valuable things aren't what we buy, but the love we share. For Ethan and Ashley, co-parenting brought its own challenges. They had different parenting styles, shaped by their distinct life experiences. Ashley tended to be more protective, while Ethan encouraged independence. I don't think Chloe should walk to school by herself, Ashley argued one evening. It's dangerous, Ethan sighed. Ashley, I get your concern, but the neighborhood is safe and the school is nearby. It's important for her self-confidence. They learned to compromise, always putting the girls' well-being first. As the months passed, the family found its rhythm. The girls thrived, both at school and at home. With better educational resources, Chloe discovered a talent for math. Olivia, inspired by Chloe's creativity, developed a love for art. Ethan watched in wonder as the girls complimented each other. Where Olivia was outgoing and impulsive, Chloe was calm and reflective. Together, they were a formidable pair, always ready for new adventures. Ashley, with Ethan's help, found a job at a local nonprofit that supported families in need. Her first-hand knowledge of poverty and struggle made her a valuable and compassionate employee. As the twins' birthday approached, Ethan and Ashley decided to throw a big celebration. It would be the first time the girls celebrated together, and they wanted it to be special. The big day arrived on a beautiful spring afternoon. The garden of Ethan's mansion had been transformed into a fairy tale setting, with colorful balloons, a makeshift dance floor, and a table of treats that made kids and grown-ups drool. Olivia and Chloe, dressed in matching but not identical dresses, a deliberate choice to celebrate their individuality, ran around greeting guests with radiant smiles. Ethan took in the scene with a full heart. He saw Chloe proudly introducing her mom to her new school friends. He saw Olivia showing Ashley her newest magic trick. He saw the two girls, so alike, yet so distinct, dancing together, laughing and twirling under the afternoon sun. Ashley came over, handing Ethan a glass of lemonade. "Amazing, isn't it? A year ago, I wouldn't have dreamed this was possible." Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of emotion. "It's more than I could have hoped for. Look at them, Ashley. They're so happy." The moment arrived to sing Happy Birthday. The girls stood side by side in front of a huge cake, their faces glowing with candlelight. As everyone sang, Ethan noticed the girls' hands were entwined, an unconscious gesture of unity and support. "Make a wish," someone shouted when the song ended. Olivia and Chloe looked at each other, smiled, and blew out the candles together. The crowd cheered, and Ethan noticed Ashley discreetly wiping away a tear. Later, when the party was winding down and the girls were exhausted but happy, Ethan gathered everyone for a picture. Olivia and Chloe in the center, Ethan on one side, Ashley on the other, all smiling broadly. As the photographer prepared, Ethan looked at his newly formed family. At Olivia, his daughter by choice and love, whose unexpected arrival had forever changed his life. At Chloe, the brave little girl who had faced adversity and was now flourishing. At Ashley, a mother who had done the unthinkable out of love and now had a second chance. "All set?" the photographer asked. "All set," Ethan replied, his voice thick with emotion. The flash went off, capturing that moment of happiness and unity forever, a family the fates had separated and love had brought together again. That night, after all the guests had left and the girls were asleep, Chloe in Olivia's room, both curled up together like puppies. Ethan and Ashley sat on the veranda, gazing at the stars. "You know," Ethan said softly, "when I found Olivia that night 6 years ago, I thought my life had changed forever. And it had. But I had no idea that was just the beginning of something even bigger." Ashley nodded, her eyes shimmering with unfallen tears. "I spent so long regretting that decision, Ethan, so many nights awake, wondering if I did the right thing. And now I see that somehow everything happened as it should." Ethan took Ashley's hand, squeezing it gently. "The past brought us here, but it's the future that matters now. A future we'll build together for our girls." Ashley smiled, returning the squeeze. "For our girls," she echoed. As the night deepened and a new day approached, Ethan and Ashley remained there, united by the extraordinary journey they'd taken and the promise of what was yet to come. Upstairs, Olivia and Chloe slept peacefully, their dreams filled with shared adventures and sisterly love. It was truly a new beginning, a story of family that was only just being written, brimming with possibilities, challenges, and above all, love. A love that transcended blood, overcame adversity, and promised a bright future for them all. And so, under the starry sky of Riverdale, a family once torn apart by fate and reunited by love, rested, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring, together.